I'm Philomena Robertson, and welcome to another edition of BVI Forward TV, a monthly program produced by the Financial Services Implementation Unit in collaboration with the Department of Information and Public Relations. BVI Forward TV is part of the Education and Awareness campaign designed by the FSIU in keeping with the BVI Forward initiative to engage the population. The objective is to help develop a better understanding of the financial services industry, which, as you are well aware, is one of the economic pillars of the British Virgin Islands. In today's program, we will update you on the 10 priority initiatives which are at the heart of the BVI Forward campaign. And we'll also begin the process of education by shedding some light on just what is financial services and what is the role of the BVI in the international financial services industry. At the FSIU, we think it's an opportune time to start the conversation about financial services because of the recent media attention the industry has attracted. Also in today's program, you'll hear from the Honourable Premier about his vision for the financial services industry in the first of what will be a series of change stories that will seek to inspire and excite persons about the changes being made to ensure a more sustainable future for the financial services industry. To get the show started, we have with us Mr. Kedrick Malone, who is the Director of the Financial Services Implementation Unit. And Mr. Malone, your role here today is to give us a progress report, right, on the BVI Forward campaign?
Yes, it is, and thank you for having me as a guest. Yes, the BVI Forward campaign is a very large commitment by government to the entire BVI. It's very important to the entire BVI economy that these measures are implemented. So we thought it was important to report to the public on a regular basis of the progress we're making. We want to be held accountable for these initiatives, and on a monthly basis during the show we'll be updating the public as to where we are with all of the initiatives. And
this is just an extension of the reporting that we've already been doing, because we have a steering committee that we report to.
Yes, we report to the steering committee, which meets once a month, and after the steering committee makes its decisions, matters go to cabinet for approval, and then back to the FSIU and the respective departments for implementation.
Okay, so there are 10 priority initiatives as part of the BVI Forward campaign.
Yes.
Let's start with immigration and labor. That seems to be at the top of the agenda for many persons. What has been done there?
It is. There have been extensive meetings with the committee sponsor, Mr. Gerard Ferraro, who's the head of that particular committee. And they've met, they've provided a report. The report has been presented to steering. Steering endorsed the report. And about 2 weeks ago, Cabinet approved the report, which means that we are now free to implement the recommendations of that report. There are 32 recommendations. Many of them are long-standing issues, and they've been approved. So in the coming weeks, the departments have already met, and the public will start to see some of these things coming out coming into implementation.
Another one of the initiatives relates to BVI Finance, which is the promotional and marketing arm for the financial services industry. What has been happening on that front?
Again, we've made significant progress on that. Broderick Penn is the sponsor of that initiative. And again, the committee has met. It has made some recommendations that were presented to steering committee. And Cabinet has also approved the BVI Finance initiative. And basically what it does, it creates a public-private company. It takes BVI Finance outside of government, and it's now a body that's governed by a board. The board is now in place. The interim board is now in place. It will be until the end of the year, where a permanent board consisting mostly of private sector persons will be in place.
Okay. On the issue of capability building, that has been somewhat of a sore point for the industry.
Yes.
And this is one of the priority initiatives.
Yes.
And I'm sure a lot of focus is being placed on this particular area because we need to get British Virgin Islanders up to the standard that is required and to get them more involved in the industry that is so important to the territory.
Absolutely. And a critical part of capability building is the Financial Services Institute, which is now at the community college. That board has met and the committee has been set up to look at that. The committee has filed this report with the board, and the board is now meeting with the Ministry of Education and the Premier to see how we're going to move that initiative forward. Capability is a fairly wide area. It involves looking at the whole education system. We've met extensively with all of the education stakeholders, both publicly and privately. We met last week with Minister Walwyn and his Permanent Secretary, and in principle we have agreed that it would be best to have a sort of a memorandum of understanding between the government education establishment and the industry. Because what we recognize is that for you to build capability, you need to do it in concert with the private sector. And I must say the private sector has enthusiastically endorsed the initiative, very willing to work with government to help build the capability. So we can look forward to hearing more about how the private sector and the education institutions in the territory are going to be working together to help persons prepare to become successful in the business, not just as employees, but as entrepreneurs as well.
Another key component of BVI Forward is to engage the population.
Yes.
Which is what we're doing here.
Absolutely.
One of the aspects of
Yes.
engaging the population. What else is being done as it relates to this particular initiative?
Well, this initiative is one, hopefully everyone out there would have heard in the last week, BVI Forward.
At least once.
At least once. At least once on the radio, on the television. They would have seen it in the newspaper. They would have seen it on social media. They would have been to our website. So if you haven't heard of BVI Forward, it means that
You're living under a rock.
not doing our job. But I'm pretty sure that we are. We have a column in the newspapers. We have a monthly television show, of which this is our second episode. We have Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube. We have PSAs on radio, PSAs on television. We're on television talk shows. We're on radio talk shows. So I hope that you've heard of BVI Forward and understand why financial services is important, why we all need to get involved, why we all need to take ownership of the industry, and that this is the future we have built, and this is the industry we built our present standard of living on. And in order for it to continue giving us the standard of living, we need to take ownership and be involved.
Okay. Business development is another one of the initiatives, and one of the things that has been said, yes, we've had 30 years of relative success,
Yes.
but we also need to do things different to ensure that we have a sustainable future.
Yes.
What can we expect from this initiative?
Well, in business development, the study clearly said you must have a function that seeks to get products from the market, get requirements of the market back out to the market in the form of products in a very efficient manner so you can remain competitive. So that function has now been added to BVI Finance, and a business development manager is in the process of being recruited. I'm sure you would have seen the ad in the papers in the past few months. We're very close to closing that deal, and hopefully someone should be in place in the coming months, but we should have a firm decision, I would say, in the coming weeks.
Okay, and value added comes, right close. It's closely associated with that function as well.
Exactly, and value added is a critical one because here's where we're trying to see what the future industry would look like. That committee is under the sponsorship of Neil Smith, the Financial Secretary, and they've actually came up with some ideas which are being flushed out a bit. Those ideas will be part of the inward investment promotion. And when I say inward investment, it also means investment from within the BVI. We have presented to steering a proposal for an inward investment strategy, and hopefully in the next month or so, the public should be aware of the areas of investment, the incentive and the structures to attract investment in, as well as to create an investment from within the territory. So I would say by mid-July or so, this should be out on the streets.
Okay. Now, tax is another word that is closely affiliated with the financial services industry. Oftentimes, in relation to the industry, it's relayed in a negative format.
Right.
But we have various tax information exchange agreements, TIAs, and the tax initiatives is actually part of the BVI Forward campaign. What's happening there?
Well, for tax initiative, the whole idea is to make sure that you comply with all of the emerging new requirements. And we know tax is a very contentious issue. Tax is sovereign, nation, and business is global. and there's an ongoing battle between how do you get taxation to fit with globalization. From our standpoint, we make sure that we are complying with standards. So the BVI, as you know, came off the French blacklist. We've said that before. We signed up to an initiative of the OECD, which is the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development. They are the global police for financial services. So we've signed up to all of their initiatives, including one called the Common Reporting Standard. You would have seen that we've made agreements with the UK on beneficial ownership. And all of these things are being done to make sure that when it comes to compliance, tax or otherwise, that BVI is at the forefront of compliance. Okay, and one of the things that's always been said is that the BVI is a well-regulated jurisdiction. Absolutely, and that has been one of the saviors. When you look at this Panama Papers situation, you'll see that we have done all that we are supposed to do. Certainly, we recognize that bad people will do bad things with good vehicles. But certainly the BVI, if you read the press, is acknowledged as being compliant, that what we do is legal, it is proper, and we will continue to make sure that we stay on the cutting edge of compliance. Right, and the body responsible for compliance locally, for regulating the industry locally, is the Financial Services Commission. Absolutely. And again, that is one of the initiatives as part of BVI Forward. Yes, and the FSC has stepped up. They have announced, as you'll be aware, they've announced enhancements to the Virgin system. They've announced enhancement to the appeals board of the commission. There are other things being done with regards to the registry, which I think is going to have a similar appeals board for the registry process. And there are some other initiatives that are coming out of the commission, which we think will, again, be to the point where they can be shared with the wider community in the coming month or so. Okay. I think one of the other initiatives would be the one that relates to infrastructure. So we're doing all of these things. We're making sure that we're improving our products. We're trying to develop new products, but we have to make sure that the framework, the environment within which the industry operates, we have to make sure that that is a good. Yes, right? Absolutely. Yes, and infrastructure is a difficult one, because when you start to improve the industry, you start to add new products and new services, you start to attract new investment. People are looking at your telecommunication services, your access to your territory, how reliable your electricity supply, what does your capital look like. So all of those things we're having discussions on. We've made some short-term recommendations regarding access to the territory, which the Premier and the Minister of Communication and Works will be discussing next week. We have a meeting to do that. And we are looking at the other areas as well. We've been in touch with the Telecommunication Regulatory Authority regarding where we are with telecom services. We know that there's some more immediate plans for the Roatan area, and we know that there are wider telecom services in the territory being discussed, and the issues that are hampering that development are being addressed. So telecom is a big challenge, but I can assure everyone that the Premier and the Minister of Communication and Works are in discussions to see how we can accelerate the critical elements that are necessary to create the infrastructure we need to attract new investment, to be on par with other financial centers in the world. Thank you, Mr. Malone, for a very comprehensive report there on what has been happening with the BVI Forward campaign. My pleasure. You're in tune to BVI Forward TV. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
For decades, BVI has relied on financial services for its economic prosperity and the standard of living we've come to enjoy.
Times have changed. Competition has grown. International pressures have intensified, and the BVI must adapt.
BVI Forward is the government's strategy to strengthen the financial services industry. It is a campaign of far-reaching initiatives serving as the engine that will drive the continuing evolution and innovation of financial services in the BVI. This will help to maintain the territory's competitive advantage in the context of changing international regulatory landscape and growing competition.
There are 10 initiatives under the BVI Forward campaign. Revamp the International Finance Center, strengthen the business development function, engage the population, build BVI lander capability, pursue tax initiatives, enhance customer service at the Financial Services Commission, attract and offer value-added services, reform immigration and labor, invest in infrastructure and establish a dedicated delivery unit to coordinate and drive implementation.
BVI Forward. It's about me, it's about you, it's about all of us.
It's about working together to safeguard the future prosperity of the British Virgin Islands.
Welcome back to BVI Forward TV. In the next segment, we have the first of what is called a change story. Now, in this series of change stories, we will deliver compelling stories which we hope will inspire and motivate you to be part of the change that we want to see in the financial services industry. It is, after all, one of the main economic pillars of the British Virgin Islands, and ultimately, we want to ensure its sustainable future. Honourable Premier, the BVI Forward campaign, that is your government's response to the significant changes and challenges that the financial services industry has been experiencing. And that started with the financial crisis back in 2008. Now, a study was commissioned by your government, and that was facilitated by McKinsey and Company, leading global consultants. And their plan was to lay out a roadmap for the future of the industry. Can you just put that into perspective for us?
You're quite right. As a government, when we came to office in 2000, where we recognized there was need for change. Recognized, although the financial services industry had served us well for just over 30 years, that there were some things on the rise, including new kind of regulations and so, which suggested that if we did not change, the industry would not continue to provide for us as it had done in the past. Therefore, we requisitioned the study by the firm McKinsey to help us sort of position ourselves so that in the future we continue to have an industry that is strong and sustainable.
Understandable. Now, that was 2014. We're now in 2016. So where are we now? What has happened since then? How have we progressed?
Well, and you're part of this whole initiative, right? We, of course, had a report. We had these leaders selected. We developed 10 initiatives. And we've been working steadily on initiatives, BVI Forward. There's the Financial Service Implementation Unit, which is set up. And the purpose of that unit is to sort of make those initiatives come alive. As a result of initiatives, as a result of the work that the unit has been doing, we have now taken to Cabinet two things, for example. We've taken the immigration and labor reform. Cabinet has passed that, and now it is up to the departments, the ministry departments, to take those reforms forward. The purpose of those reforms is to be able to help us to respond more positively to the needs of the financial services sector. For example, people coming into the country to work in that area may have special requirements, which have been outlined in those documents. And it is just the changes that we envision in the Immigration and Labor Department, not simply for financial services, but being driven by financial services, but it will affect our entire work, how we operate in the BVI, as far as inward investment goes, as far as work is concerned, as far as people coming in to visit, etc. So it's a sort of important piece of work that was done that will help to make the change that's necessary for the BVI to continue to develop and grow.
Excellent. Now, you made the point there that although the changes are being spurred by the financial services industry, it's not just about this industry, it's about the entire BVI, because it's about all of us, right? And it's important that we have the stakeholders getting involved and doing what we need to do.
Yes. Of course, one of the major things about the entire economy of the BVI, whether it's financial services, whether it's tourism, is about service. It's a service economy. And in the service economy, everybody in the country has to be involved. Everybody has to put the best foot forward to welcome the visitors, for example, who come to the country, to welcome the changes that come in the country as a result of the new developments. And this is what the BVI Forward is about. This is what BVI Finance is supposed to be doing, partly joining government and the private sector to be able to, encourage the change, to be able to bring new ideas, to be able to develop the industry so that it can be sustainable. And if we all, that is, all the people in the country, were to embrace the ideas that are coming forward, we'll see the opportunities, whether we're young or old, adults and young people, we'll see the opportunities that are provided by the financial service industry. And hopefully, once it's done, be able to take advantage of the training opportunities which are also provided by the reformation in the Financial Services Training Institute, and then be able to become part of that industry as we go forward.
Okay. Now, we have done the consultancy. We've laid out the roadmap. Looking a couple of years down the road, what does success look like?
Success means that we'll have a sustainable financial services industry. But what that means is that with new products, different kinds of products, be having more value added to what we do here in the British Virgin Islands. And I expect as a result of that, there'll be more employment opportunities and more business opportunities in the sector for BVI Islanders. And those, of course, who come to work and live among us.
Right. Now, how do we achieve that? How do we achieve that level of success?
We do that by following the roadmap that has been outlined by BVI Forward, following the McKinsey report. And I think, as I said before, if we all were to appreciate where we're going, what the needs are, and follow that report, we should get there.
Okay. You spoke before about your cabinet already taking 2 decisions as it relates to the recommendations coming out of the McKinsey study and also the work being done by the Financial Services Implementation Unit. Now, what does the overall rollout plan for BVI Forward look like?
Well, first of all, we are, as I said, far advanced in the Immigration and Labor Initiative. And that is being handled by the various ministries and various departments. And as they look at each point that was raised, they'll be developing them further, taking them to cabinet. So I expect that process will take a few months to happen. In other areas, for example, where we were making sure that the public was informed, that process began several months ago and is, I think, well advanced. And I believe that it was quite effective, but of course our work will continue. When it comes to BVI Finance, we have again taken that matter to the Cabinet, and it has been approved to develop BVI Finance, which will be, there will be a change, and the change will be, it'll be a partnership now between government and the private sector, driving the initiative forward, driving the changes that are necessary to continue to develop our financial services sector forward.
Okay, so there's obviously lots of things happening on the government end. Now, what do you expect from the people of the BVI, the persons who reside in the British Virgin Islands and who benefit from, who participate in the financial services industry?
We want the people of the BVI to understand the importance of the BVI, of the financial services industry to the BVI. Once they understand that, then they want them to become more involved in the industry. And this means get involved in being trained. Having been trained, recognize the opportunities that are provided, both for employment, both for business opportunities, and then taking those opportunities. And by doing so, then the whole BVI can become more involved in industry.
So we've set out what we want from the population. What can we expect from you, Honourable Premier?
You could expect that I will continue to be involved. As you know, it was the initiative of this government that we set this whole initiative, into play. And I will continue to be involved because it is, for me, certainly, and for the people at BVI, it is important for the continued development and sustainability of the economy. And so because of that, then all the ministers of government, all the departments must be involved and will be involved. In fact, are being involved. And of course, all the people in the territory will be involved as well. They have been informed of about the need, about the importance of this sector to the economy, and I'm sure most people have now grasped that. The education program will, of course, continue, but I want everybody to know that BVI Forward is important. It is important to continue development of the economy of this country.
Thank you very much, Honourable Premier.
For decades, BVI has relied on financial services for its economic prosperity and the standard of living we've come to enjoy.
Times have changed. Competition has grown. International pressures have intensified, and the BVI must adapt.
BVI Forward is the government's strategy to strengthen the financial services industry. It is a campaign of far-reaching initiatives serving as the engine that will drive the continuing evolution and innovation of financial services in the BVI. This will help to maintain the territory's competitive advantage in the context of changing international regulatory landscape and growing competition.
There are 10 initiatives under the BVI Forward campaign. Revamp the International Finance Center, strengthen the business development function, engage the population, build BVI lander capability, pursue tax initiatives, enhance customer service at the Financial Services Commission, attract and offer value-added services, reform immigration and labor, invest in infrastructure and establish a dedicated delivery unit to coordinate and drive implementation.
BVI Forward. It's about me, it's about you, it's about all of us.
It's about working together to safeguard the future prosperity of the British Virgin Islands.
Welcome back to BVI Forward TV. In the final segment of our program, we focus on the education and awareness side of things. An important part of the BVI Forward campaign is to raise awareness of the financial services industry. It's an important part of the BVI. Its impacts on daily lives of residents, and we want people to begin to truly understand what the industry means. To help achieve this objective, the FSIU has tapped into some of the talented minds with extensive experience in the financial services industry. With me today are Helene Lewis and Michael Killhourhy. I'll allow them to briefly introduce themselves. We'll start with you, Helene.
Hi, I'm Helene Lewis. I've been living in the BVI since 1990, practicing as a lawyer, first at Harney's and more recently at my own law firm, SimonetteLewis.
Mike?
Hi there. My name is Michael Killhourhy. I haven't been in the BVI for quite as long as Helen, just for 5 years. I'm a partner at Ogier, which is a law firm which is originally from the UK Channel Islands, but now also based here in the BVI. I'm a lawyer and I specialise in transactional law, mergers, acquisitions, and generally using BVI companies in a variety of transactions around the world.
Okay, so now that our viewers are quite familiar with who you are and what you do, let's get right down into the discussion about financial services. Now, we hear and we use the term financial services all the time, but do we really understand what it means? Helene, can you start by providing us with a definition of sorts of what is financial services?
I think the term is used in the BVI and in most international finance centres, refers to the raft of products and vehicles, legal vehicles, that are available to persons for managing, arranging the protection of their assets and the preservation of their assets. So you have vehicles like companies at the basic level, but then specialized types of companies, and Michael will tell you more about those, segregated portfolio companies, funds, and such like specialist vehicles. But we also have trusts, and of course the wealth planning aspect and the succession planning aspect, where we use BVI companies, where international high net worth individuals use BVI companies to hold assets that will be passed on to future generations.
So that, you would say, is the basic premise of the financial services industry?
Absolutely. I mean, obviously there are other jurisdictions which offer banking, which we do not particularly offer in the BVI. That's not a big part of our business, but there are other jurisdictions that do offer banking, which is strictly, obviously, financial services. But the using all these vehicles together as a means of managing assets and managing wealth and the use and management of these vehicles is what is commonly referred to as financial services.
Okay. Mike, she spoke about other specialist types of vehicles. Is there anything else you want to add to that definition to help us get a better understanding, a holistic look at what really the financial services industry is all about?
Yes, the BVI, at the very heart of BVI Financial Services is the BVI Business Company. Which is an entity that was first arose in the 1980s with the International Business Companies Act, and that was modified and amended into the current BVI Business Companies Act, and is now what we call the BCA. There are other types of company and other types of vehicle. There are limited partnerships here. There are Helen managed segregated portfolio companies, which are a very specialist type of financial services vehicle, which probably won't get into a great detail how those operate. But each of these types of vehicles, partnerships, limited partnerships, BC companies, segregated portfolio companies, they all have a particular role to play in particular transactions. So when folks come to us, clients themselves involved in financial services industry, and they ask us to set up their structures or businesses, there is a particular type of vehicle for that particular type of business, be it insurance. Helen said, you know, we don't do an awful lot of banking, and we don't here, but other types of structures and businesses, and there is a convenient BVI vehicle for all of those financial services activities.
Right. So I got from what you're saying there that the BVI Business Company, that's one of the primary tools, one of the primary vehicles or structures that is used in the conduct of financial services, or one of the primary services that we offer. And we are, in fact, one of the leading destinations in terms of company incorporations, are we not?
That is exactly correct.
Right. So I think you explained, you know, that these companies are set up to hold and to manage assets. Can we go any further into the definition of how and why, you know, companies are really incorporated?
I can take that. Companies, actually, it's going back to what you said, companies are incorporated to hold assets. A company, by its definition, is a separate legal person, separate from the shareholders who establish it, separate from the directors that manage it. And it is a convenient way to hold assets, to contract, to manage liabilities, such that that company can operate independently of the people who own it. So if anything goes wrong with the company, it is the company that is liable rather than its shareholders, unless of course there's any kind of misfeasance, and then you can look beyond that. So it's really a convenient way to operate a business, to hold assets, to manage liabilities.
Right, and the same types of companies that we establish or incorporate here in the BVI, these are done in places such as London and Delaware, are they not, Helen?
Indeed. The specialist aspect of the BVI company has been, and the unique selling point of the BVI company has been the flexibility of the vehicle. That is to say that it's incorporated here in a tax-neutral jurisdiction, but it is capable of doing business anywhere in the world, so that any transaction, what we commonly now call and refer to as cross-border transactions, benefit from the facility of using a BVI company. Parties might want to engage in businesses. Parties from different countries want to engage in businesses. They want a neutral platform from which to launch that business for a number of reasons. Neutrality is not only related to tax, it's also related to the legal environment in which a contract can be entered into, so that in the event that anything goes wrong, people are looking for a jurisdiction, a platform where litigation can take place efficiently, effectively, and we now do also have, as part of our selling proposition, an excellent and efficient commercial court. So that those are the backgrounds and the reasons for using BVI companies. And part of the selling point, going back to even the original International Business Companies Act, is the use of English common law, the fact that we are an English common law jurisdiction, the fact that the Queen is the head of the state is also a very specialist selling point. People are very comfortable that you're in a stable political environment, and obviously the use of the US dollar is also very attractive to clients internationally.
Right, so the BVI is in fact a really attractive jurisdiction. Mike, are there any other factors that come to mind in terms of what makes the BVI attractive?
I think Helen summed it all up very nicely. I think, you know, you talk about the comparisons between English companies, Delaware companies. I think, you know, start off, BVI companies are similar to those companies. They're like those companies, which is good. You know, folks know what they're dealing with when they come to the BVI. But BVI, in a lot of respects, is much better. You see, English companies, Delaware companies have been around for, well, English companies well over 100 years, almost 200 years in their present form. So a lot of the law that is the bedrock of English companies and which they're subject to has grown up all over the years. And some of those laws were relevant 150 years ago during the Victorian era. And some of them aren't. And although they've tried to change those laws over time, it's very difficult to move things that are historically ingrained. The BVI, on the other hand, we came, you know, relatively later to the incorporations business. But when we did that, we could look around the world and say, look, let's look at all the laws in the world, and let's look at the better aspects, the aspects of those laws that work and those that don't. So we can really sit down and think about what a BVI company should look like and what would make it attractive to the rest of the world, be those folks investing in the company or folks lending money to the company, people dealing with it. And so what we ended up with was a company that is, as Helen said, it's flexible, but equally provides adequate protections to those folks who are dealing with it, and therefore it is attractive. And it is very attractive. I mean, as I think a lot of people know, I think well over 1 million BVI companies have been incorporated, IBCs or BC companies, since the IBC Act came in. And I think there are at least 500, well over 500,000 of those still active now. So it has been a uniquely successful product.
Right, and I've heard that the BVI companies, they're so popular in Asia that you know, they're referred to instead of a business company, they're actually referred to as a BVI.
That's correct.
Absolutely.
So
even if they're going to establish a Cayman company or an Isle of Man company, they'll still refer to it as a BVI, which really upsets my Cayman office colleagues.
Okay.
But it's all about branding.
Absolutely.
Yes, and it speaks a lot about the reputation of the BVI.
That's
For sure.
correct.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. We're very, very well entrenched in the Asian market, very well respected, and because not only of the capacity and capability of the companies themselves, but also we've come to be respected because of the core of excellent professional services available from the BVI. We have a broad range of competent professionals and broad and deep range of competent professionals that provide services across the board for all the specialist activities with which these companies can become involved.
Right, and there goes another factor why the BVI is so attractive.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Mm.
Okay, now cross-border transactions have really become the norm in today's world because of the globalization that has occurred, and you know, the operation of the world is, you know, just one big village. Now, the BVI has enjoyed some stability in its 30+ years as a financial services jurisdiction. What would you say, or how would you say we can continue to protect what we have established? And not just protect what's established, but to build upon it and to grow and to secure our future, looking 30 years down the road.
I'm sure our viewing public is very well aware of the challenges that are being posed to the BVI financial services industry at this time as a result of all the international initiatives that have been leveled against us in a way. But I think that one of the things that we have to recognize about the BVI in the first place is that we have always been ahead of the curve in regulation. I've been here, as I said, since 1990 when the industry was just blossoming. And it was as early as that the financial services, the precursor to the Financial Services Commission was initiated as far back as that, with the earliest regulations in the industry, certainly in the overseas territories. We were the first to introduce certain types of legislation, leading to disclosure, transparency, and building on those blocks. We have come a long way towards meeting and exceeding international standards. So that we have to continue to do that. We have to continue to invest in ourselves and continue to have forward-thinking leadership in the regulatory sphere. But we also need to do a lot of some, not than a lot, reinventing of ourselves and tweaking of how we provide our services. We can do more things. I'm sure Michael will agree that back office services and in looking at new products and new legislation and continuing to evolve. Because although we face challenges and what might look like a downturn at the moment may be a little bit intimidating, I think the fact of the matter is that commercial activity in the world will continue to blossom, and the BVI can continue to take its seat at the table by being proactive in looking at what we provide.
Mm-hmm. I think that's absolutely true. I think there are two things here of how we make sure that the BVI continues to thrive and continues to be a success. I mean, one, as Helen said, we have to be mindful about the onshore world and its perception of us. But I think it's very important to say, look, we have been looked at by a number of international organisations, the OECD, Tax Justice Network, all these folks, and we're on the OECD whitelist. We are identified by these international bodies actually being a well-regulated, transparent jurisdiction. It's easy to say, don't believe everything you read in the press, but it's important to get that message out there.
Exactly.
We are not doing anything that is underhand or untransparent here, and we spend a lot. We are a very compliant jurisdiction. We have, I forget how many now, but 30, 40 tax information exchange treaties with various jurisdictions around the world. We have an intergovernmental agreement with the United States, FATCA, and with the United Kingdom. Transparency is not something we are lacking in here. But secondly, it is important that we, as Helen said, we remain a relevant piece of the international economy through the products and the legislation that we have. Now, the success of the BVI, certainly in recent years, was built upon us identifying a niche in the world economy and creating the IBC, which became the BCA, the classic BVI company, as being something that could operate in that economy and was something that was popular and people wanted it. And that's where BVI Financial Services, as it now is, came from. We have to make sure that we continue to invent things like the IBC, the BCA. We have to make sure that legislation continues to be relevant, that we listen to regulators around the world, we listen to our market around the world, and that's kept fresh. And equally, we need to look at other financial services markets and products that we can introduce and sell or to the rest of the world. I mean, we've in the funds world, we've recently introduced 2 new types of BVI registered fund, an approved fund, and an incubator fund, aimed at a particular market for new startup funds. And we're already seeing a little bit, more than a little bit, a fair bit of success in folks using those types of fund vehicles. So it's being mindful of our obligation to be well regulated and to be transparent, so that we can stave off criticism from the rest of the world, and to get our message out there and tell people, look, no, we are a well-regulated jurisdiction, we are well-respected. There are all these wonderful, great things about the BVI, but also making sure that people want to buy our products, that they are the things that people want and want to use.
Okay. I think we've given our viewing audience quite a bit in terms of starting that education process, getting to understand the basics about the industry. So as we prepare to put a wrap on things, I'll just ask you from your perspective as a spokesperson for the BVI Forward campaign. Mike, you're an endorser for the campaign, which means that you're a high-level company executive that helps to give credence to what we're doing. Helen, as a member of Team BVI, you're part of that team of resource persons who for years have been engaging in promotion and marketing activities for the industry. So coming from each of these perspectives, can you give us an endorsement for the BVI Forward campaign, that strategic plan that we now have to take the industry forward, to sustain its, actually to ensure its sustainable future?
I think our messaging has to be a little bit more aggressive. I think we've sort of been very shy and retiring about blowing our own trumpet in certain respects. The BVI is a compliant jurisdiction. We are transparent. We do have all the positive accreditations of the international agencies that set themselves up to do these regulations. But we are also prepared to go to bat for the age-old concepts of privacy and confidentiality. Transparency is one thing, and we do comply, and information has to be available in the event of proper inquiry. And we have had that system and mechanism in place for quite some time. It's nothing new to us. I think we do have to be a bit assertive about saying we are good, we know what we're doing, and we've been doing it for a while. And we're prepared to protect our clients on one level, to the extent that that is both feasible and appropriate. But at the same time, we need to continue to be relevant. And as Michael said, looking at new legislation and inventing new products and coming forward with innovation, and which we do very, very well. Because again, as I say, the core of competent professionals that we have in the BVI, consistently working with government and the regulator to find the right balance between what we offer and what the world needs.
Okay, great. Mike?
Absolutely, I completely agree with that. Let's be aggressive. Let's blow our trumpet. Let's let the world know what it is that we do here and how good we are at doing it and how compliant we are. But the other aspect of the BVI Forward campaign that I really like and I think is incredibly important is the education side of things. I mean, it's having these kind of programs and the other outreach that we do in schools and colleges. Because I think the important thing is that the whole of the population of the BVI, residents, BVI Islanders, folks just coming off a cruise ship, they have to know what we do and they have to be behind that. The BVI will succeed if we're all in this together and that we can all put that message across. So, on one level, we need a well-educated population who can work in financial services and make it all run efficiently, which is what the world wants. But equally, we need everybody to be an ambassador. Every BVI Islander, every resident, no matter what you're doing, whether you're on a boat or you're working in a hotel or you're, I don't know, anything, you have to be an ambassador for the BVI. And you have to have knowledge of what we do in order to be able to do that. I mean, I had a friend who was a BVI Islander. She was on holiday. She was in Las Vegas or somewhere. And she was in a taxi, and the taxi driver said to her, "Where are you from?" She said, "I'm from the BVI." And he said, "Oh, that's where people go to hide their money, isn't it?" Now, she was educated, and she knew what we did, and she hit back at him and said, she didn't hit him, obviously, but she explained, no, this is what we do in the BVI, and he was educated. So let's make sure we're all educated, that we all have knowledge, so that if we're ever in that situation again, anybody's in that situation, we can get the real message of the BVI out there and spread it around the world.
Right, and as you say, that is at the heart of the BVI Forward campaign as it relates to engaging the population, ensuring that persons become more aware of the industry, what it entails, what it means, how it impacts them, whether directly or indirectly, so that they can meaningfully engage in these conversations, right? So that instead of having just the persons involved in the industry speaking, we have the entire population speaking. Exactly. We're all moving in the same direction.
One of my favorite teaching moments that follows on from Michael's story is that I love sitting in a taxi in London, and they, after 2 minutes, they say, "So where are you from then?" And I'm like, "Okay, I'm Trinidadian, but I live in the BVI." "Oh, that's been in the news a lot recently." and the conversation flows from there. My favorite example nowadays is that I say to them, because, of course, London cabbies are the most educated people in the world. They are very knowledgeable. They're very knowledgeable. And so my favorite example nowadays is, look, suppose you've decided you want to buy a Jaguar motor car. You go down to Park Lane, and it's listed at £70,000. But you head up to, I don't know where, Luton or some suburb, and the showroom has it listed at a 6-month-old Jaguar, same color, same design, everything. The 6-month-old Jaguar listed at £30,000. Which one are you going to buy? You're avoiding tax, because the VAT in London is lower than the VAT. So you're avoiding tax. Have you committed a crime? I don't think so. So you need to understand why people do what they do, and that it's perfectly legitimate. And tax avoidance is not a crime. And we need everybody to understand at different levels how to explain that to people whom they encounter. Because everybody, the minute you say BVI, the whole world knows that they need to ask you the next question is, "Oh, there's dodgy money there, isn't there?" And you need to be able to answer that. And I agree with Michael that the education program that we are attempting with the BVI Forward project is exactly what is needed at this time to ensure that every person in the BVI is switched on to what we do, why we do it, and to protecting what we do so that we can have it for the next generation.
Right. And it certainly comes at an opportune time because so much attention now is focused on the financial services industry because of the situation with the Panama Papers. So we're using the momentum that's created there to instill positive knowledge about the industry and just turn the tide, get everyone on board.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for being part of the process.
Our pleasure.
And with that, we come to the end of today's program. To the viewers, I hope that the discussion has helped with your understanding of the financial services industry. And to my guest, thank you for helping to enlighten the public. As one of the economic pillars of the Virgin Islands, the future of the financial services industry rests with all of us, whether we are directly or indirectly involved in the industry. BVI Forward TV is a monthly program. Be sure to tune in again. Stay up to date on all things BVI Forward. Visit our website at www.bviforward.vg. Follow us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and YouTube. And also check your local newspapers for the BVI Forward outreach column. BVI Forward, a collective effort for the common good of all of us here in the British Virgin Islands, ensuring the sustainable future for our financial services industry. I'm Philomena Robertson. Thank you.